All right, so first thing to know is we're in the middle of deal season right now, and this is just after Thanksgiving. Holidays are in full swing, and just like Black Friday, the best real estate deals of the year are happening right now through the next few months. I have 5 closings scheduled this month, 4 with buyers and 1 with a seller, 3 homes that we're under contract for, appraised for well over what we paid for them. That is almost unheard of in the past year or so. All of my clients got offers accepted below asking price, and some of them even well below asking price. We got some really good deals. And the seller that I'm working with to get an offer accepted, they had to give a little bit more than they wanted to as far as like seller concessions go and closing costs, things like that. So now is the best time for buyers. And I expect that to continue into 2025. But I did mention last month how the housing market is a little bit more resilient than I anticipated. That is still the case as well. And the numbers I'm going to give today are going to be for Forsyth County, so Winston Salem and some of the small surrounding towns and suburbs around there. And our median sales price this month came in just a little bit lower than the month before, which is kind of typical this time of year, but we're still up near all-time highs. But if you take a look at the wider picture there, you see we've been kind of in a range for about the last year or so. While prices have been going up overall, they're up over last year. They are in a range where they're coming up some and down some and things like that. But, you know, a lot of this is due to seasonality. But what I want to talk about right now is where we're at like right now. So if we take a look at this 7-day market snapshot, you're going to see not a ton of new listings. We only had 60 new listings come on the market in the last 7 days, but look at this. We had 63 homes go under contract in that same period of time. Kind of remarkable for this time of year where we see more homes going under contract in this last 7 days than we saw come on the market. So buyer demand still overall is high. Now I want to temper this a little bit. While that is a pretty amazing statistic, it's not the frenzy like we saw in years past, right? There is still strong demand in the marketplace, but it is a much more measured pace than we've seen in the past. But this demand numbers kind of will come into play as we talk about what's going to happen. I think is going to happen anyway in 2025. We still see strong demand, but you know, this is a little bit different in meaning where, you know, you can go see a house, you have a day or so to think about it. It's not like you got to decide and write an offer right on the spot because there are 10 other showings that day and they're probably going to get an offer or 2 or something like that. It's much different. One of my clients we came back and then we're narrowing it down between 2 homes. We went back the next day and we saw each of them again. They talked about it and then we ended up writing an offer that night. So this was over a couple-day period where, you know, the house had been on the market for a little bit. Yes, there was some activity, but, you know, it wasn't, like I said, that mad frenzy where we have to make a decision right now, which really does reduce stress on the whole buying situation when you just have a little time to process things. And an interesting fact, given this past month's numbers, that the actual showings per home has come down. I believe we're at about 4.2 or 4.5 showings per home, where it still takes about 8 showings to go under contract on average. So again, a lot less activity, but there still is demand in the marketplace. And this kind of makes sense, right? You know, it's the time of the year where not as many people are buying or selling. We're still in a relatively high rate environment. I mean, rates were at this time last year, there was, you know, almost 8%. Now, you know, my last market update, they were up almost 7%. So a point less, but still very high. They have started to come down over the last 7 days or so though. There are still some really excellent incentives from builders if you're looking at new construction where you can buy down that rate into the high 4s and low 5s. We see that pretty often. Or you could get upgrades. You can have your choice on homes and, you know, and lots and things like that. The pace is just much slower. So while there is demand, it's just a much slower pace than what we have seen earlier in the year. And if you're thinking about buying or selling real estate, my contact information is on the screen right now. I'd love to be a help for you. It's also listed in the description below. But let's talk about a couple more things before we get into what I think is going to happen in 2025 in the Winston-Salem real estate market. We're still in a really tight inventory market, okay? We're still under 3 months total supply of homes. This is not only in Winston-Salem or Forsyth County, but that's the same throughout the entire triad. And this is about the same, almost exactly where we were in 2018 and 2019 before the pandemic. So again, that was still a strong seller's market. But again, not like anything that we saw in years past, you know, 2020, 21, and 22. So if we say the market is normalizing, right, we're kind of back at pre-pandemic levels. So normalizing again to what it was before. Still a seller's market, but not as strong as it once was. We have tight inventory, and I think that inventory is going to stay tight through the entire year of 2025. I'm saying this for 3 main reasons. The first is that lock-in rate. These people that got the really low interest rates, right, in like the 3s and 4s, there's a good chunk of those people that just simply aren't going to list their home right now unless they really have to for those big life events. So that lock-in effect is going to constrain supply. The next thing to talk about why I think supply is going to be tight over the next year is the mortgage delinquency rate. As unfortunate it is, you know, foreclosures are a part of the resale home inventory. And if we take a look at the mortgage delinquency rate numbers, we'll see that the mortgage delinquency rate is about half of what it was pre-pandemic. People that are behind on their mortgage 30, 60, 90 days and facing foreclosure or going into that pre-foreclosure process, that number is about half of what it was pre-pandemic. And regardless of, the economy goes good or bad over the next, 3, 6, 9, 12 months, people that have a favorable rate, or if they have something big happen, the giving up on their house is going to be the last thing they want to do. They're going to give up on a credit card or a car or something first. So we're just not seeing the mortgage delinquency rates that we're used to, which means we're not seeing the foreclosures like we typically do, which means that is another chunk of inventory that's just simply not going to come on the market in 2025. I mean, even if those numbers started right now, if they started increasing, that foreclosure process takes 6, 9, 12 months to go through before those homes will get foreclosed on and before they will come back on the market. So we're just not going to see a lot of foreclosures. There's not going to be a big wave or anything like that anytime in 2025, in my opinion. So that is going to be another constraint on supply through the next year. And the last piece I want to talk about that is new construction. There is going to be a constraint in supply in new construction. And now while we have seen new construction be 2 and a little bit over 2 times more of what we typically see in the Winston-Salem area, we're just not seeing enough to meet the demand. And this is for a few different reasons. But a big one is, builders, when they're going to build and develop these lots, especially the small and medium size, they have to borrow money too. And in a high rate environment, that makes it more difficult for them to build homes as well, because they have to borrow money to do construction and to pay their people and all those things like that. So those rates are putting a little bit of a constraint on builders. And while we did see new construction sentiment, it went up. It did take a dip back down this last month or so, where builders aren't quite as confident in the economy, at least as of about a month or so ago when we saw the last report on those numbers. We'll see if that takes a turn as we head into the new year, where that confidence picks up. But right now, the new construction of homes is just not as fast as we need it to be. One example of this is Caleb's Creek in Kernersville. Now, this is a huge development that's had ups and downs over the last couple of years. They had problems with the developer. They had, underfunded HOA, and the developer ran into problems and couldn't get homes built and things like that. Well, that developer actually ended up selling out a big chunk of Caleb's Creek. Lennar, actually a national home builder, bought that for about $80 million a couple months ago. But now just this week, Lennar sold a big chunk, about $71 million of Caleb's Creek development, to a real estate financing company. And what this means is they sold, I don't know if they need to get those funds back liquid or what happened. They sold that to what is basically a real estate financing company, where they sell their interest and then Lennar can buy those lots back through 2029 at the same rate that they paid for them, basically. So I'm guessing maybe they just wanted to free up some cash, or they can't develop Caleb's Creek as quickly as they wanted to. So they're forced to kind of sell that to this company with the intent that they will still build over the next few years, just not as quick as they had hoped. So that is a really good example of the new construction where there's a constraint in supply there as well. And whether you're thinking of buying or selling over the next, 3, 6, 9, 12 months, this is a big thing to keep into consideration. Supply in Winston-Salem and the surrounding areas is going to continue to be restrained over the next foreseeable future. So we know if supply goes down, if demand remains the same or increases, right, what's going to happen to prices? Prices are going to go up. So let's talk about what I think the demand is going to be over the next 12 months in the Winston-Salem real estate market. The first of that is just the overall economics of the area. Unemployment is low here, lower than the national average. We have overall in Winston-Salem a strong economy. We talk about from time to time of companies coming here and expanding here to bring more jobs and things like that. So the economic future looks pretty good for Winston-Salem. The city runs a good budget. They have plans for redevelopment in downtown and different things like that to help the city keep growing. So I anticipate, as far as that goes, demand to remain high as far as the overall economy in Winston-Salem. But this is also a place that moves up in lists, best places to live. Winston-Salem is still one of the top places in the country to retire to. And just people looking for a better quality of life or more affordability versus, Raleigh or Charlotte and things like that tend to come back to the area. So the overall economic picture of Winston-Salem points to demand remaining strong over the next year in 2025. The next thing, if we talk on the demand side, if we talk about pent-up demand, there were a lot of people that got out of the market last year at this time when rates were about 8%, right? There was a lot of people that just said, wait, we're pausing, we're not going to do this. And there were people before that who had, those, government-backed loans, the FHA, VA, where they couldn't get offers accepted. Remember that during the pandemic when they had to wait, and then now they're forced to wait again. Those people people are starting to trickle back into the market a little bit right now. But these two things, I think there is still a lot of pent-up demand in the market. And that's not something that I can put a solid statistic on. I just know when I talk to people, and people have reached out to me over the last year that I'm staying in touch with, it's like, hey, when this, and this happens, we're gonna be ready to go. And this is just kind of a waiting game. So there are plenty of people, in my opinion, still just on the sidelines, waiting for the timing to be right to get back into the market. I think the biggest thing that is holding them back right now, even more than price. I mean, prices are high, but rates have such a huge impact on affordability. And just in the last week or so, I mean, we had rates at almost 7%, and now they're down to almost 6.5%. They're about 6.6 when I'm recording this. So they've come down almost a half point in the last week or so. We're starting to see those people come back into the market little by little. So again, I think the demand is going to remain high through next year. So get into the bottom line, and the internet is forever, so we can look back on this later and say, ha ha ha, you were wrong, or wow, Jeff, you are super smart. But here's exactly what I think is going to happen in 2025 in the Winston-Salem real estate market. I think now through the start of the spring is going to be the best time of the year to buy, period. That's not, going out on a limb or anything like that. That's kind of what it tends to be like this time of year. This year at the end of 2024, we just had a lot of things come into place where I thought there were some exceptional deals, and we did help some clients get those really good deals. I think this is going to continue over the next few months, but when we get to spring, I think it's going to be busy. And I think it's going to get pretty busy. We're going to see more of the multiple offers, some of the bidding wars, not crazy stuff like we saw before, but we're going to see more over asking price offers where you need a little bit more due diligence money, and you're going to have to be competitive. Maybe you're not going to have as much time as you are right now, but I anticipate the spring market to be a busy one. Sellers are going to be in the driver's seat for that, and buyers are going to really have to have their A game ready when they're coming to make offers on the vast majority of these homes. If it's move-in ready in a good area, there's going to be a lot of demand this spring. Now, buyers, if they're not buying right now, you can't over the next couple months until February or March, your next best opportunity will be typically when it is, right? That's when the kids start to go back to school, late summer and almost to the beginning of fall. So we'll have that window there in, July, August, where I think there will be a slowdown, another little opportunity for buyers to get some deals. But overall, I think spring and into summer is going to be tougher for buyers. It's going to really favor sellers. So sellers are going to be in the driver's seat again for most of 2025. As we get into spring, sellers, there's going to be more inventory for buyers to choose from, but there's also going to be more demand. So if you're thinking of selling that spring, that kind of depends on the weather. If February is really warm, maybe, we see our spring market start then, but really, March, April, that's going to be a great time if you're thinking about selling. Again, not like years past. I think it's going to be pretty similar to what we saw in spring of 2024. Very busy, competitive, multiple offers, some over asking price, but we're going to see prices, probably where we saw that dip this past year, we went under asking price as a whole. I think we're going to stay right around that 100% list to sales price ratio. And as far as pricing goes in 2025, I think they're going to go up, but I think they're going to be at the higher range of what is normal for the Winston-Salem area. In a normal year is, 2, 3, maybe up to 5%. I think we're going to be at the higher end of that range. So prices probably go up, 4 to 5%, maybe 6% if the economy is just booming through the spring and into the summer. We might see prices go up a little more than that, but I really think it's going to be in that, kind of 4 or 5% price increase year over year. Another interesting thing we saw prices like that go up this year, about, 3 or 4% kind of went up this year, which is kind of more of a normalized year for the Winston-Salem area. Hopefully, as we get into this market and, if rates trickle down a little bit, I hope that will bring the more new construction online where builders will start building more. They'll get some confidence in the economy. If rates continue to come down, the hope with that is we see some of those sellers that are in that lock-in effect really start to put their homes back on the market because they see the market's going up. They could take some of their equity, buy a rate down a little bit more so that won't sting quite as bad. That's kind of the hope to try to keep things balanced, is we need more of those sellers that have those lower rates to really put existing homes back on the market. That's where we need the most inventory to come from, because that is the vast majority of the market in the Winston-Salem area, right? We're relatively small in relation to other areas of new construction. So we need something to happen for more of these sellers that are locked into these lower rates to really get them to put their homes on the market. I think really what that's going to need to happen with that is we're going to have to see prices, or not prices, but rates kind of come down a little bit. 5.9s I think would bring a lot of people to get their house on the market that maybe wouldn't have, even if it's in the, low 6s might as well, but I think we need to see something with a 5 in there to really start to see some of these people get out of that lock-in effect. And I also think, very importantly, I'm going to be the #1 real estate relocation agent in the entire area, as well as in your heart. And if you need help buying or selling real estate, you can reach out to me directly at jeff@govalentino.com. Thanks.